All right, everybody, welcome to Grape to Glass. This is March. It's our last quarter of our last month of our first quarter of wine club shipments, Mari's picks. So this is the final two wines. If this is the first time that you've been here, welcome. We're excited to have you. This is part of One Hope where we do virtual tasting right from your home. I know there's a couple gatherings happening, one in Ohio, and you're welcome to bring your friends, your Grateful Club members, and of course our cause entrepreneurs are here. So welcome everybody. We're going to kick this night off with one of my favorite wines, especially for spring and for the Easter holidays, and that's our sparkling rosé. If you're just joining, I gave a couple pro tips on how to open your sparkling rosé, and we've got a lot of comments in the chat box. I'm glad you guys like this wine. It's awesome addition to our Vintner collection, which just launched in September. So a couple pro tips here for you guys. If you just hopping on, I always keep the cage on. That's my rule number one. I never try and take the cage off of a sparkling wine. That's kind of my control valve so that I can use my tea towel, cover the bottle, and use kind of the grip that the cage offers to open my wine carefully. So you want to do that, and you always want to keep your wine when you're opening it at 45-degree angle. After you pull the cork and you hear just like a little hiss, it's not even a big loud pop, you'll just hear a little hiss, and then you'll see all the rest of the gas and bubbles, but none of the wine coming out. Leave your bottle at 45 degrees for maybe about 10 to 15 seconds, and then you can go ahead and serve. So there's a couple tips for you guys. A lot of you know that this is one of my favorite causes, feeding children and providing meals for kids in need. One Hope has now provided over 2 million meals to kids in need with our sparkling wines. So this is a great bottle of wine that does give back to a great cause. So kicking this off, you'll notice my glass selection tonight. I never have the same glass, do I, you guys? I'm always trying something new. You don't have to use a wine glass, and I know it's hard to do, especially when you have a big tasting, but I really do like sparkling wine in a regular wine glass. This is what my friends and I enjoy when we have a glass of sparkling wine to kick off an evening, and then you can just use it for the rest of your wines too. So it doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need to have a flute. You don't need to have something special for sparkling wines. You don't have to order a bunch of glassware for an event. You can use any glass, but tonight I'm using this one with a stem so that my sparkling wine stays cold. I like to have this wine chilled. The ideal temperature to serve our sparkling wine would be pulling it out of the fridge and letting it sit on the countertop for about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, and then you'll have the perfect temperature to serve your sparkling wine. I also do like to pour little teasers, little kind of cheater pours. So I usually kind of go through and pour everybody just a small amount in the bottom of their glass, and then I go ahead and fill the rest of the glass for the tasting. So there's a couple ways so that you don't have those glasses overflowing. And let's see here. Let's dig into this. So some of you might not know that I started my winemaking career at a sparkling wine house. So my very first internship while I was still in college was at Gloria Fair Sparkling Caves. And I worked there for 2 years, made a lot of sparkling wine, and then have now made a lot more sparkling wine recently, including this sparkling rosé. So I wanted to share some really fun tips with you guys about sparkling wine and kind of how it's made, and go into my favorite ways to enjoy it. One fun fact is that sparkling winemakers almost always drink sparkling wine all the time. So if you ask a sparkling winemaker, well, when do you drink sparkling wine? What does it pair with? They're going to say everything, because they literally drink sparkling wine all the time. It's definitely one of my favorite wines to enjoy, and I enjoy it outside of special occasions, but also just it's a great wine for any occasion. It typically is low in alcohol. It's got a lot going on, really flavorful, and there's so many different types within our portfolio that you can really enjoy it with all kinds of different foods and occasions. So sparkling wine rosé, this is not specific actually to ours, but sorry, just one sec, guys, for some reason. There we go. This is not specific to ours, but sparkling rosé typically is a blend of about 70% red grapes and 30% white grapes. So that's kind of funny because everything you know about rosé is that it's a white wine style made with red grapes, right? But sparkling rosé actually is typically a blend of red and white grapes. So it's almost the only time that you see rosé in this way. So sparkling wines are base wines that are made. So you actually make a wine just and ferment it as you would for a white wine and a red wine. Although you don't have any skin time, you don't have any skin fermentation, so you have very low tannin and very low color. And then the blending occurs after those wines are made to get just the perfect color. And you can see this just has this perfect, beautiful pink hue. It's kind of like, it just reminds me of how it smells, like raspberries and pomegranates and just this perfect shade of pink. So that is something that's really cool. Another fun fact I wanted to share with you guys is that sparkling wine bubbles are formed at what we call nucleation sites. That's not a real sexy word, I know, but basically at the bottom of the glasses, there are little scratches, just little imperfections at the bottom of the glass. And that's actually what creates the bubbles to keep continuing. So some sparkling wine glass manufacturers actually make sure that those glasses are imperfect, and they etch extra little pieces in the bottom, etch extra little nucleation sites at the bottom of your glassware so that you can have continuous bubble formation. So sometimes if you find that you've poured your sparkling wine and it's just not bubbling up as much as you thought, it might not be the wine, it might be the glass. If you've got soapy residue, if you've from a dishwasher, that's actually going to really inhibit some of the bubbles. So a couple fun things to know. You guys like that? Cool fact. Awesome. There's so much about sparkling wines that we can't even cover all of it tonight. But one of the things as well is that if you notice on our bottle, there's so many great facts and fun, just little sayings like this one pairs well with hammocks and giggling. I think I can do that. Smoked salmon and strawberry salad, which are in season and perfect to enjoy for a brunch. But you'll notice there isn't a vintage date on it. There isn't a date of harvest, right? We're used to seeing this like 2016. That's the year that grapes were harvested. But most of our sparkling wines, most sparkling wines around the world are actually called non-vintage. Sometimes that's just spelled out NV. So non-vintage sparkling wines are very common. They give winemakers flexibility in their blends to help create a consistent house style. And that seems to trump anything about a specific vintage. Now, if you go to Champagne, you will find some vintage dated sparkling wines, and they will be very, very expensive and delicious. But typically you're going to see non-vintage sparkling wines. So that's okay. So if you're looking at your bottle and you're going, but I don't know what vintage this is, it's okay. That's normal. They're typically non-vintage. And sparkling wine actually does age very well because it's under pressure. So these wines can last a really long time in the bottle. Did you guys know that the first wine, speaking of how long wines last, did you know the first wine was actually not preserved with a cork? It was preserved with like an oilcloth. An oilcloth, like a rag, was actually inserted into the bottle, and that's how wines were closed. So we've come a long way. All right, so let's get to tasting. It's really hard to actually swirl and sniff sparkling wines, right? Have you ever noticed that? Like, what am I supposed to do with this? I mean, it's already bubbling. You don't have to swirl sparkling wines. Whew, That's a relief because sometimes they get out of control, right? You don't have to swirl sparkling wines. You actually can just sniff them and see what happens when the bubbles are already bringing the aromas to the surface. I love this one because it's, in addition to the wild berries and little floral notes, I get some pomegranate. Does anybody else get some pomegranate on this wine? But most of the sparkling wine is enjoyed by sipping. Good news, right? Dan, I can see you on my screen, but I don't see you sipping. Do you not have any sparkling rosé?
I couldn't find any in the estate today. I was really crushed.
Oh,
I was scouring high and low, and it's like it's an outlier coincidence because we usually have everything, and I didn't want to advertise that, but
okay. That's
but
good.
I have the Carneros Pinot lined up and ready to go.
Awesome. We're going to restock. Kendra said last time that she was there, she probably drank it all. I think that's probably happened.
I'm sure that was correct.
So sipping sparkling wines, especially this sparkling rosé, you're going to notice the bubbles, right? They may have a sensation in your mouth. And every sparkling wine has different size bubbles. Some of them are smaller than others, and those small bubbles create sort of a creaminess. These are kind of medium-sized bubbles, so they actually really express the fruit well. Medium-sized to larger bubbles, the largest bubbles being in Prosecco, tend to have like a real fruit-forward expression. So when I taste this wine, I get a lot of that pippin apple right there that you see. It's just really balanced. There is nice acidity. It's not too sweet. It's not too dry. And it's on the light body side, so perfect for spring and summer. We also have a reserve North Coast sparkling rosé, which is made in a traditional méthode champenoise method. So that one is going to be a little bit more expensive. This one is made by our Charmat process, which is where we actually bubble the wine in the tank and then bottle. So it gives more fruit forward, more expression, and just kind of really pops in your mouth. Pairing. Well, I love, like I said, winemakers love pairing everything with sparkling wines, but rosé is typically my favorite wine of all to pair food with. So any assorted cheeses are going to be great because we've got some high acidity. Sparkling wines are always high in acid, even though we have a medium because it's balanced with the sweetness. It's still a higher acid than a lot of other wines. So those creamy cheeses are going to be perfect. Smoked salmon is a great combination with this also. Any kind of salmon, actually. It's great with the rosé because it balances the flavors. I love strawberry salad. Strawberries are in season. Everybody's been talking about the strawberries in California. There's loads of them at all the farm stands and farmers markets. And just in time for rhubarb. We're also getting rhubarb right now. So I love those flavors because they have a touch of bitterness, that also complements with the sweetness of the wine, but they're also really, really balanced and mimic some of the flavors that are found in the wine, like that wild berry. Strawberry is one of those flavors. So you're going to be able to take any of our tasting notes, and you could always pair like for like if you're not sure. So we've got tasting notes, floral, wild berry, and pippin apple on our bottle. You could pair any of those. So how do I pair floral? Well, we've seen some pretty fun recipes coming out lately on Pinterest with roses and all kinds of really cool flowers. So you can get creative and really the sky is the limit. But this is a great wine for spring. I also love this wine with ham. It's awesome with ham sandwiches. Typical and traditional Easter fare is actually great. Deviled eggs or a deviled egg bar would be really fun to do for a brunch or a tasting, and also pretty low cost. So there's a lot of fun hosting options that you can do with this wine, as well as just putting some strawberries out and some cheeses. There's all kinds of things. A ham quiche would be really good. So you can get super creative with this wine. All right. Any questions before I go on to our Carneros Pinot on the sparkling rosé? I really do love this one, guys. Cheers, Chris. Chris has hers in a flute. I can't see everybody, but I know you will pop me in the chat box here if you have anything. Kendra says, yes, it goes well with anything. I agree. This is probably one of the most versatile wines in our Vintner collection, to be honest. So if you had to pick a go-to, you know, you're going somewhere, you're going to your boss's house, you're going to a friend's, you're going to a wine connoisseur's house, you're going anywhere, you know, doing anything. This is probably the most versatile wine in our collection. And it's year round. Rosé doesn't have to be about spring, but spring is its first season, right? It's the first one we celebrate. It's like, it's rosé season, woo! And it's spring. But then we've got what I call the whole year, and the second season being like right around the holidays to enjoy it. And it looks beautiful on a holiday table, a little bit of color, just add some depth to your tablescape. So it's really fun. Alrighty, moving on. It's hard to move on from that one, I'm going to be honest. I really like that. Okay, I've got 2016 Pinot Noir here for you. Another one that I selected for this quarter with spring in mind. Pinot Noir is great for spring. It kind of brings us out of this winter hibernation mode and into lighter food, lighter fare, easy wines to enjoy. And this is certainly one that's easy to enjoy. All right, I've got some really fun facts for you before we dive into this wine. First of all, Pinot Noir is known as kind of a tricky grape because it's difficult to grow. You guys probably saw some of that in the movie Sideways. Anybody? We learned a lot about Pinot Noir in Sideways. I'm actually thankful and grateful for that movie. But it's difficult because it requires a very cool climate and certain soil types. And it's just not one of those grapes that's very versatile. If it's not in the right climate and it's not on the right soils, you just can't make great wine. It's one of those just, you know, really stubborn grapes. It's got to be in the right place at the right time. And that's just how it is. But we don't know that when we're enjoying great wine, right? We have to learn that. So where are the great regions around the world that this grape is grown? Well, of course, the Carneros region in Napa Valley. It's the coolest region of Napa Valley, being on the southern border. It actually, Carneros spans Napa and Sonoma counties. So it's in both Napa and Sonoma. And it lies just north of the bay, the San Francisco Bay. So we get a lot of fog, we get a lot of cool days, and critical, a lot of airflow. Pinot Noir is finicky because it doesn't want any humidity and moisture. It wants cool air. So fog does have moisture, right? But it also has a lot of airflow in the Carneros region. If you guys saw me live last harvest when I was up in our Chardonnay, Carneros Chardonnay vineyard, and I was going live with you guys, and we were just looking at the canopies and the grapes growing, and it's like they are just swaying from side to side constantly all day. That's all that airflow that's circulating through that North San Francisco Bay, and that's Carneros. We have Oregon, also known as an exceptional Pinot Noir region, and the Burgundy region of France is probably the most renowned, most traditional location for Pinot Noir. I want to tell you and come back to the sparkling wine that Pinot Noir is one of the leading grapes in Champagne. So in Champagne, France, they make Champagne with Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. So this grape also grows in the Champagne region of France, in Burgundy, France. It grows on the southern island of New Zealand even. I did some work there with Pinot Noir. I love Pinot Noir. I've worked in the Russian River. We've got a Russian River Pinot Noir in our portfolio. We've got an Edna Valley Pinot Noir in our portfolio, and recently launched a Monterey Pinot Noir, which I'm also really digging right now. Love those wines. This Carneros Pinot is aged for 10 months in French oak. So typically Pinot will spend less time in French oak than Cabernet, which typically spends an extra year in French oak. So not a lot of time in oak, just enough time to merge the tannins and kind of weave them together, build some structure around the wine, add a little bit of complexity to the aromas. But we hear a lot about Cabernet Sauvignon. This grape is actually older than Cabernet Sauvignon and is in kind of a little particular category of grapes that have been around since Roman times. It's an ancient category of grapes that also includes Muscat. And we've talked about Muscat before. We have several Muscats in our portfolio as well, but it's always interesting to know that this isn't a newbie on the block. This grape has been kind of tried and true and mainstay in France for many, many, many years, and really has only succeeded in the coolest New World regions, right? Cool, meaning climate, the very coolest temperature regions. All right, let's get to tasting. All right, so this is one you can swirl. Can you guys show me your swirl? I gotta look through and see you guys. I can't see everybody. Yay! Izzy Kelly's swirling. This is a fun one to open. Yeah. So this is always fun to swirl while you're in your own house. You're not somewhere where it's going to jump out of your glass. You can swirl your coffee, you can swirl your water, you can kind of get your swirl on. But swirling this kind of wine is important because you are actually going to get the aromas jumping out of the glass so that you can smell the wine, which is kind of critical for red wines to be able to smell them, because most of our experience with these wines is through our olfactory system, and we need the volatile aromas and all of these beautiful attributes from the grape itself and from the winemaking process to come together and jump out of the glass. So let's do that. When I smell this wine, I get a lot of that strawberry compote in the middle. Do you guys get that? The strawberry? It's almost like a little bit of a cooked strawberry, but it's not jammy, right? It's fresh strawberry that's been kind of cooked down that you would want to add to a crepe or, you know, something delicious, yogurt. Really smells good. And a little bit of that sun-dried redwood. So that character comes from our oak barrel aging process in 10 months. It's about 35% new French oak in this wine. Sipping this wine, I get more of the dried berries that we have here in our flavor profile. That kind of medium balanced wine. It's not super full body, but it's not light body. What I love about Pinot Noir is that it is lighter compared to Cabernet or Malbec or Shiraz, but the tannins are persistent. They're kind of a fine grained tannin. Has anybody been to our sensory station at Crush? You bet we're going to have it again this year. Anyway, at our sensory station at Crush, you actually get to feel some of the textures that I'm talking about, and you get to smell some of the things that I'm talking about. It's really, really fun. You get to sort of be in a touch tank of wine descriptors, if you will, and that is going to be in our Crush pad at Crush this year. So we will get to do that together when you guys come to Nashville. But if you can imagine kind of a sand and how a sand would feel in your fingertips, a very fine grained sand, that kind at the beach that you really can't get off because it sticks in between your toes and in your sandwiches and everywhere, and just like a layer on your skin. That fine grained sand is kind of the texture of these tannins. They're small, but they're mighty. There's a lot of them. And they kind of coat your entire tongue and your palate to have this medium-bodied wine. Pairing suggestions for our Pinot Noir, I definitely recommend some earthy flavors and some bright fruit flavors, because Pinot Noir can be both earthy and fruit expressive at the same time. This one is typically a little bit more fruit forward than, let's say, our Russian River, which is very earthy. So I like to do a little bit more of those kind of earthy flavors. When you have the contrast flavor pairing, it kind of brings out the most in the other one. So an earthy flavor would make this fruit pop even more, okay? If you have like strawberry sorbet with mint, which I think is perfectly acceptable to have with a glass of Pinot Noir on a hot day, you're going to get a little bit more of the earthiness from this. A little of that mint is going to kind of even bring out some of that redwood character and the dried berries. But if you want the strawberry flavors to pop, that strawberry compote that we had in the flavor profile, caramelized onion is awesome. You can do caramelized onion pastries. I think you can even buy them at the store. Those are great for hosting. Just pop them in the oven. Perfect pairing for this wine because it's sweet, but it's also a little bit earthy. Any kind of mushroom fettuccine, you've got the creaminess that's going to balance out the acidity, bright acidity coming from the Carneros region because cool climates bring out more acidity. So you can do, like I have here, a shiitake mushroom fettuccine, but any kind of mushroom fettuccine would be great. Again, salmon comes up with Pinot Noir because it's a great pairing. It's got enough kind of fat and substance to match and really complement the fine grained tannins in Pinot Noir, but it isn't so rich that it overwhelms the wine, right? And then the strawberry sorbet with mint. You can get creative again with anything. So the dried fruit that we had there, you can get creative with that. I love for hosting just like a few bowls kind of that you can nosh on. So you could make your own sort of like gourmet trail mix and add some of those dried berries, add some nuts, maybe some popcorn in there, throw on some different flavors so that as people are kind of tasting wines and mingling, you can really enjoy some different flavors, but they're all very intentional and thoughtful, right? And they help you kind of spark conversation because it's fun to talk about food and wine, right? Do I get any nods? I think it is. I know you guys do too. All right, so that concludes our tasting for this evening. I am open in the chat box for anything you guys have questions about. I'm going to take a look and see if I can see all of you. It's not wanting to let me see all of you. So if you have anything you want to comment on tonight or any questions about these wines, please pop them into the chat box. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with all of you tonight. It's such a great showing. I know that people are starting to get busy with their businesses, and we're here to help you. I hope this does help you and help you kind of share the story, share these wines, and how delicious they are. This is Mari's Picks. This is the final selection for Q1. And in April, we're going to kick off Q2 with our new selections. Every month, we share 2 wines each month in this virtual setting. So you can invite your friends, invite your Grateful Club members, invite prospective CEs, anybody that you want to your house, your friends, your spouse, anybody. And just make it a fun evening where you can learn about wines and you didn't have to go all the way to Napa, right? Pretty fun. All right, I've got a couple questions, it looks like, in the chat box. California Pinot Noir and Burgundy, the same Pinot Noir grapes? Yes, Kendra, but great question because there are a lot of different clones. So Pinot Noir is the grape, and then within that, people get really, really nerdy and geeked out about their clones. Let me tell you. So a lot of different clones that express differently and different characteristics in different sites, and that's where the variation comes in mostly for Pinot Noir. Kelly Smith is asking what's coming to Q2. Well, one thing I'm going to tell you that's coming to Q2 that everyone is able to share with their Grateful Club members is our exclusive Napa Valley Moscato. So that is going to be launching April 1st for our Grateful Club members and, of course, our Cause Entrepreneur community. This wine is exclusive to our Napa Valley property. It's amazing. It's the Napa Valley Nectar. It's in a gorgeous, gorgeous package. It is kind of like a little sip of heaven. If anybody's tried it, it's delicious. That is coming in Q2. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that one. Yes, the skinny bottle, Kendra. Yes. I had no idea that Pinot Noir and Burgundy were the same. Oh, awesome. Another great point. Yes. So when people say, oh, I want a red Burgundy, that's Pinot Noir. When people say, I want a white Burgundy, that's Chardonnay. Okay. decoding and demystifying some of these things that are hard to wrap your head around, especially if you're new to wine. And even with a lot of years of experience, it's hard. All these grapes change names across borders faster than Jason Bourne. It gets really difficult to keep up with. But yes, red Burgundy is Pinot Noir. So pretty fun stuff, right? Yeah, I know. I like it. Well, great questions, you guys. I'm so excited to have you here. Bring your friends next month, and we will chat about Mari's Picks Q2. And have a great evening, everybody, and cheers.